It's 2024, it's bar exam season. What do you need to know to pass the bar exam in 2024? I'm here to tell you, top level, what you need to know. Let's jump right into it. First off, my first tip for passing the bar exam in 2024 is stick to the plan. Many of these bar exam prep courses that you're using, whatever you may have paid for, they have spent hours, thousands of hours, thousands upon millions of dollars focusing on what works for getting students to remember to learn the law in preparation for the bar exam. So sometimes students are overwhelmed, sometimes they are deterred by these bar prep companies. They just want to throw out the entire program early on because they feel like it's not working for them. You need to trust the process a little bit. You need to avoid really diverting too much from the study schedule, at least in the early stages. A lot of times the first month is really about building your foundational lessons, building your foundation as a learner, building your foundation as someone who is studying for the bar. Once you build that foundation, you kind of have the option of, within the second month of bar prep, as you start to really get into it, of diverting, of sort of focusing on your areas of weakness, focusing on working on things that maybe you're just not getting. Let's say multiple choice questions, let's say MPTs, whatever it may be. That's sort of more of a second month issue that you should really be honing in on. That's not to say you shouldn't be doing practice questions throughout the process, and that brings us to our second tip here. Start doing practice early and often and do it right. What do I say, or what do I mean when I say do it right? I mean, don't just mindlessly do practice questions. There was a lot of gamification with stuff like UWorld, stuff like Adaptable, where you can feel like maybe you're just doing a light quiz as you're going through these MBE questions. But remember to focus on what you're getting wrong, and not only focus on the answers to the questions you're getting wrong, but also the answer to the questions that you don't know why you got right. Because you're not always going to have a strong sense of the rule, even on the questions that you got right. Be sure to emphasize both the answers that you're getting right for the wrong reasons and the answers that you're getting wrong, because you want to know the difference between rules that you really have nailed down, that you're super confident in, and the rules that you're only kind of mushy on. So do practice questions early and often, and when it comes to essays, make sure that you are actually doing things under timed conditions. Too often students avoid these timed conditions because they're uncomfortable, they're unpleasant. It's not a great feeling to struggle through a practice essay. It feels like you're getting kicked in the head a bit. But just try your best, do your best to actually press through these timed conditions, and you will persevere. Our next tip is very simply, don't stress about the rule against perpetuities. The rule against perpetuities is perhaps, to me, the most confusing issue or subtopic on the bar exam, and I know a lot of bar prep courses, including Barcast Audio, is at this point moving away from really emphasizing the rule against perpetuities. And the reason for that is simple. The bar examiners themselves have moved away from testing it. So if the bar examiners themselves are moving away from testing it, if all the big box bar prep companies, if all the bar prep companies around are generally moving away from emphasizing it, keep that in mind as you're going through this process, and don't lose your mind over things like the rule against perpetuities. Understand also that the Establishment Clause, a rule that was recently changed, recently impacted by recent Supreme Court decisions, is unlikely to be tested on the bar exam for the simple reason that it has adapted, or it has sort of grown into an area of gray. And what the bar exam does not often do is test upon areas of gray. They want black and white rule statements. They don't want you to be operating within these gray areas, because that's more difficult for them to test. And that's noticeably and notably different from the way law school exams work. Too much of law school, or at least in my opinion, is operating within that gray area, getting to maybe, as they say, before you go to law school. And the bar exam is not really like that. It's understanding analysis and reaching the correct conclusion. So things like the Establishment Clause, things like the Erie Doctrine are not necessarily going to pop up on the exam. Finally, our last topic here, the last thing I really want to talk with you about the 2024 bar exam guide, is to not get overwhelmed. Don't overstudy here, because that is a real risk. Students very often feel sort of an anxiety, not only about the exam itself, but by the fact that they see their fellow students studying for 14 hours a day. They feel like they need to devote every waking moment to this exam. And the thing that I always tell my students at Barcast, the students I work with private tutoring, is always that you need to think of this process. Think of this study process as a marathon and not a race. You need to get to the finish line, whether that's 8 weeks, whether that's 12 weeks, whatever you may be doing here from a study perspective. And you cannot do that if you were sprinting the entire time. You need to save some of that energy. You don't want to burn out 2 weeks before the exam, a week before the exam, and then your brain is essentially just fried. You need to keep something in the tank. You need to devote yourself to this process. You need to, if you are doing studying right, if you are devoting your time during the day correctly and actually studying and not just sitting on your phone as you're supposed to be watching lectures and not taking notes, then you don't need to be studying until 10 o'clock. Don't feel like you need to be studying for 12 hours a day as long as you're getting a solid block of studying in each day. And whether that's 6 hours or 8 hours, whatever you can get, make sure that you are devoting a solid block of study time. If you are doing that, if you are avoiding the pitfalls of studying passively, sort of looking at your phone, not locking in when you are at your desk, or feeling that you need to sort of study for 14 hours a day, if you're doing those things, you are going to be set up for success come exam day. You are going to avoid burning out beforehand, and you are going to ultimately be very pleasantly surprised or pleasantly pleased with how your exam scores come out a few months from now, when you get those emails and you have that pit in your stomach and you're waiting to see whether or not you passed. This has been a brief guide to the 2024 bar exam and what you can do to ensure that you pass. Some key tips here, some guides that are really helpful. Be sure to check out barcastaudio.com. We have essay guides, essay attack sheets, everything you need, audio outlines, everything you need to pass the bar exam. We have it over there at barcastaudio.com. So check us out over there and subscribe to this channel for more of these videos. Until then, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye now.